Did you know, Lee Miller? How are you?
I did know how I am. I'm good. But what were you going to ask me, do I know?
Do you know that the moon does not produce its own light? It just reflects sunlight?
Yes.
And did you know that moonlight takes 1.3 seconds to reach the Earth?
No, that I didn't know.
And what about that NASA? You say NASA?
I say NASA, but I've got flat vowels.
Let's call the whole thing off. NASA has a website that lists 5,000 years of solar and lunar eclipses.
Nice.
Do you know I've got an advent calendar?
And is it a lunar eclipse advent calendar?
Yes, and it's from the Science Museum, who seem to be in cahoots. I'm so glad. I think that's the first time I've used the word cahoots on midlifing. In cahoots with M&S. For listeners not in the UK, that means Marks and Spencer. Spencer's? Spencer.
Spencer singular, you are correct.
Marks,
sometimes
M&S.
Lovingly referred to as Marks and Sparks.
Marks and Sparks, exactly. Yes, I was gifted an advent calendar. You could only call it a secular advent calendar. And it has facts about lunar eclipses and lunar things.
You sound like the very definition of a lucky duck.
And you know what? They have little. I'm guessing. Wait, how old am I? I reckon it's 40 years since I've even opened the door on an advent calendar.
Wow.
Yeah, and maybe longer. And do you know the chocolate that it comes behind foil these days? You probably know that.
To stop it going off, I guess, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. And it's been difficult. They're tiny bits of chocolate. I would say morsels doesn't even do it justice. But you know,
Right.
the thing about this whole thing is that a colleague at work gave it to me. Isn't that nice?
It's incredibly nice.
I have a feeling, though, this colleague might be trying to level up to the status of Froleague.
What makes you feel that?
I just, like gifts, that's a whole different thing, isn't it?
I guess.
And I'm just worried. I'm worried that the colleague might be listening. But if you are a aforementioned, unmentioned, unnamed colleague, it's going to take a whole lot more than 25 tiny little bits of chocolate hidden behind doors with facts about eclipses to reach the hallowed status of Froleague. This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing.
I can be bought. Oh yes, I can be bought, but not that fucking easily. Absolutely not that easily.
I feel like that's the podcast done.
So can you be bribed, Lee Miller? Are you bribable?
Oh, I mean, of course I am.
What would it take? What would it take in a situation that has, let's say, weight or substance or that matters, or even from a perspective of sort of legal situation?
Oh, okay, right. Then in that case, I need to take a massive step back. I think in that context, I can't be bribed. I think I could be blackmailed. I think I could be held over a barrel. I think, I would be, if somebody were to kidnap Jeffrey and then force me to vote a particular way on the academic board, I would vote the way they wanted me to.
Right.
Such is my sphere of influence. It's very small. I can't imagine anybody would.
But what about passing? What about passing a PhD student, for example?
Nah.
Nothing.
There isn't.
Not even Jeff being.
Oh no! Well, again, yeah, I will do anything to save Jeff's life. I'm not that fussed because nothing is that important outside of the sanctity of my familial sphere. But if somebody kidnaps Jeff and says we will harm him unless you pass this PhD, I'd be like, okay, I'll pass the PhD. Like I give a shit. In the sense that it's a piece of paper versus somebody who's spent the last 6 years living in my house, making me feel much better about myself every single day.
Wait, that's not the PhD student. That's Jeffrey, right?
That's Jeff. I don't keep PhD students in my house to make me feel better about myself.
I swear I have so many.
Maybe.
I have so many. I have so many PhD students that every now and again I find one down the back of my couch. I swear.
What I wouldn't
It's really awkward when you're having a meal at night.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's that sticking in my bum? Oh, yeah. Hi.
You'd have to cut that out.
Why? It's just a foot sticking out the back of a sofa. I meant like you sat on them, not... Oh, I see. No, I didn't mean it like that. Oh, gross. Yes. No, but I think that's, I think probably anybody who is doing the whole moral high ground, if you were to think about something that you cared about deeply, you would cave.
What about if it was? Yeah. I think I think I'm with you. What about?
We're back to John Wick, aren't we? It's just preemptive revenge in the sense.
Oh yeah, I forgot that we talked about John Wick. Yeah, they're not alive. Not a lot of lives saved in that film. Those films.
No, you're absolutely right.
I haven't watched the last one yet.
It's good. You should.
Oh well, it's because the illegal download seems to not be working. So
pity.
Yeah.
But in answer to your previous question about bribing me,
midlifing brought to you by Putlocker.
Movies 1, 2, 3. Other Russian
next
bot
week,
sites
other Russian
exactly.
Snap.
I don't think I could be bribed because I don't from that perspective, somebody was to offer me
money, a lot of money.
Yeah, but honestly, whatever, even if we were to be silly and say, here's £1 million for my stupid child to get a PhD, I'd be like, no, go and find somebody else because that's not who I am. That I wouldn't be able to sleep with myself. I think I meant to say I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Apparently, I wouldn't be able to sleep with myself because that just sounded saucy.
Yes, I sleep with myself every night, basically.
I'm guessing we're not talking about bribery and corruption today, are we?
No, I wasn't. No. I just was. I haven't actually opened today's little door on the advent calendar, so maybe I'll do that at some point in the episode. Just
to ginger the day up. I was scrubbing the path outside the house today because it had gotten quite slippery. You're opening your advent calendar now, aren't you?
You can hear. I thought I was doing it secretly.
I mean,
it's quite tricky. It is quite tricky to open. And the weird thing.
And now you're going to chomp in my ear, aren't you?
Oh, I'm not. You're going to make me feel guilty.
And you do what you want to do.
Live
your life.
I've held back. You go back to Slippy and Slippery.
Yeah, the path was slippery, and I was cleaning the green gunk off it because we've had, I don't know what it's been like for you, but we have had a lot of rain over the last couple of weeks.
God, I did. I said to a colleague the other day, it felt like the weather was basically in some kind of weird competition with itself to see how filthy it could possibly be.
Yeah,
I mean, it has been revolting.
Yeah, it's like Wednesday woke up and went, Tuesday, hold my coat.
Yeah. I'm going to show you just exactly how bad things can. Yeah, it's really
exactly. So that's very much what it's felt like here, and it's meant that there's been
all these friends in New Zealand sending me videos of them sitting in the sun too. It is really obnoxious. Really obnoxious.
Yeah, but they are in the summertime, so they should be allowed to celebrate. Because they have to presumably put up with the rest of the world going, oh, it's so hot, when it's actually cold for them.
Yeah, but they don't have to gloat about it. Anyway, sorry.
I'm sure they're not gloating. They're just letting
I think
you know.
I might be reading it as gloating. Isn't it interesting how, it doesn't matter the context. You think, that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
God, we're small. We're small, aren't we, human beings?
We are. And I was thinking about... I wasn't thinking about the size of humanity as I was cleaning the path. But I was thinking about this podcast. And I was thinking that it was born during a pandemic. And it was born during a really, really weird point in history where, the world was topsy-turvy. And it just occurred to me as I was scrubbing the path, wow, it doesn't feel like it's righting itself anytime soon. That was all. It just feels like this podcast is capturing two people gently
living
talk
through.
about living. And I wondered, I suppose my question is this what being alive has always been like, do you think? That sense of being in the middle of a churn, of a turmoil, or is it turned up to 11 right now? Or are we just the kind of people who are bothered about things? Or rather, am I?
one of my most terrible clunks in a really just
a stellar career.
A stellar career of. Maybe I've mentioned this one. There's some of them I do think are unmentionable. And this one was on the 11th of the 11th of September 2001. Have I told you this one? So my clunk was, and this was in Philadelphia. So I was at a dance department at Temple University. I was there as I was doing my PhD, and I was there on maybe it was 3 months I was there. I can't remember, like a fellowship kind of thing. And by the time, the different rumors, by the time it was clear that this thing had happened, it was still before the fourth plane had come down. I'm pretty sure I have told you this. It was before the fourth plane had come down in somewhere in Pennsylvania, the state that I was in. And, it was a pretty high-stress situation, as you can imagine. And one of the teachers, so one of the, I guess, what do they call the faculty, they say there, said, nothing will ever be the same. And I said, they said that when Kennedy was shot. And I don't know how loud I said it, but it was pretty, it was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad thing to say. And of course, my point, no excuse for the not somehow censoring the thought. But my thought was exactly the thing you've just asked, which is, I have a sneaky suspicion that every generation thinks it's like that. Can you imagine the people, on the 3rd of November, 1963, when maybe it was the 20th. Anyway, I can't remember. In November 1963, when Kennedy was shot and died, that you imagine the unrest and also that the civil rights movement in the 60s in the United States in particular. That sort of sense of churn must have been extraordinary for people who were our age at that time, who had survived the Second World War and gone into that. Maybe they were born during the First World War. In fact, we would have been born during the First World War if we'd been in our 50s at that time.
Yeah.
And so then the only serious thought I have about that, though, is that I think there's something very different which you're pitched straight into, and I think it comes out in this podcast as it did 2 weeks ago. You're pitched straight into the as they say, the so-called 24-hour news cycle, and the way in which the cable television and news sites existing 24 hours a day have had to create news, not reflect on news and not I should say convey and reflect on news, but effectively creating it. And I think that's probably very different. But I'm not in that world, so I don't feel the same churn that you're feeling. I'm aware that things are pretty shaky. Don't get me wrong, but
because this probably sounds like a weird thing to have been ruminating on as I was scrubbing a path outside my house.
Yeah.
I was thinking to myself, did people feel this way when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses on the door of Wittenberg Cathedral in, when was it, 1517? You know what I mean?
That's your kind of fact for sure.
But
I could open all the doors on my advent calendar and see what's hidden behind there.
But you know that's one of those. It's one of those pivotal moments in the Reformation. It's one of those moments where the kind of the mechanisms of the Roman Catholic Church were being called into question. It's like, actually, really, can you pay somebody to pray for you? Is that how it works? Because I went back to the original text, and there doesn't seem to be any evidence for that, and so all of that kind of stuff, and I'm picking one moment in history which continues to reverberate, because there's absolutely no doubt about it that the emergence of a Protestant church has these kind of continued seismic resonances throughout global culture constantly. And this is not
even
like
sort of the occupation of the United States, or when it was first, as they say, discovered, is very much a part of that whole
it's just
lineage, I guess.
Absolutely. It's not that long, it's not quite in living memory, but it's like, just 100 plus years after that the Puritans, because they were so devout, couldn't find a home in the deeply immoral mire that was England at the time, and they had to flee
and make friends with North American Indians.
Oh, yeah, I can't really.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I know. It's really is.
I suppose that's obviously a moment in history that continues to sound like a bell. I just found myself scrubbing the path and thinking about, did people wandering around Wittenberg the day after, I think he did it on Halloween or something. All Hallows Eve, as it would have been called rather than Halloween. Were people wandering around on All Souls Day going, well, bugger me. That Martin, have you heard? I'm pretty sure that isn't what was happening. Probably because they wouldn't have sounded quite so
not with that accent.
I'm going to say, no, it would have been, schnell, Kartoffelkopf. Herr Luther. That was my attempt at a German accent, because that's where Wittenberg is. Entschuldigen. Haben Sie, wie komme ich am besten zum Wittenberg Kathedral?
I'm actually, the thing is, we're only I'm a hair's breadth away from basically calling out all my sort of Commando comics German from when I was an 8-year-old.
I actually did do enough German at school to be able to at least ask for directions to the cathedral. And haben Sie? And I was trying to go, have you heard? Haben Sie? That's probably not how you would phrase that sentence, because my German is not that good.
Or Ich bin Berliner. That is JFK's famous. He called himself a donut, didn't he?
Ich bin.
Sorry, ich bin. My German's probably a little weaker than yours.
I'm only by a hair's breadth. But yeah, there you go.
Sorry. It does remind me of that joke. If the answer is 9W, what's the question?
I don't know.
Herr Wagner, does your name start with V?
Oh my God, that's horrible.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Oh.
So we're back on track. Yeah,
I don't know that there's anything more to sort of mine in that.
But just to say, there's something. No, I don't want to. I know. Also, I'm not trying to sort of blood from stone it, but and clearly there's something very different in terms of the smallness, or I'm going to use the word localness, of just how small the world was. Even Second World War time. Certainly the telegraph changed a whole lot, didn't it? But the smallness of the world in those days, in terms of how slowly information traveled. So it's very hard to imagine that feeling like churn, the way you're experiencing churn, the way we experience churn, in terms of just how much information is it's a pretty old argument, old idea, I should say. It's not an argument. And so there's something about that sense of being, and it's the worst sense of being connected, I think. Because how is it that I can care as much for people in a part of the world who are suffering, let's say, differently from people who are right next to me, so there's something about our inability to comprehend and to manage those bizarre differences in scale and proximity at the same time. I think I think it's really, really troubling, actually, and difficult. But I'm just amazed that the things you think of while you're sweeping a slippery path.
I was on my hands and knees. I was scrubbing because I was worried about Jill slipping. I wasn't just sweeping. I was on my hands and knees. I'd got the caustic soda out and I was giving the floor a jolly good clean because I'd gone round to deliver some kick to Jill for her breakfast. And yes, I did say kick like that. I'm not trying to sound like a 1940s clipped BBC radio announcer. Kick. It was more that I was trying to sound Portuguese. There is a cake called kick. Q-U-E, and it's a lovely little buttery...
Did you say Q-U-E, Q-U-E?
Q-U-E, Q-U-E, like Q, but with an extra Q in it.
Right.
So not Q-U-E-U-E, Q-U-E, Q-U-E, kick. I remember when we were learning Portuguese very early on, when we were just doing it with apps, rather than when we'd actually had lessons and discovered just how shit we are at it.
We just how limited the apps are.
Yeah, we were in a shop, and we'd learned how to say, how do you say? So como se diz, and we were pointing at this thing. And this woman said, we said, como se diz isso? And she said, cake. And I said, well, we know it's a cake, but how do you say it in Portuguese? She's like, no, you say cake.
Cake.
Oh, so it's like cake. She said, yeah, but kick. There you go. But I made some this morning, and I was taking them round to Jill, and I nearly went on my body. And I thought, ooh, I should scrub this path. So that was why I was scrubbing the path, because I didn't want anybody to... I did have the slippiest shoes on anyway.
Right.
I didn't want to.
So do you think we have exhausted that particular subject? Maybe I should have a quick chat with my sister and just see that she's happy that there's been enough content there.
I mean, we are content creators. One would hope that she would be happy.
Just as a little tag, a beautiful, beautiful sign at work, the downstairs toilet, which just cracked me up the other day as I was doing number ones, and I read the sign. It says, "Please close the lid when flushing." I did have this moment of going,
we have the same sign!
I was going, wait, hang on. Okay, so I'm going to close the lid as I'm flushing. At what point do I start closing the lid? I had this whole choreography of lid closure and time.
It's a holdover from COVID, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, because you know when you flush the toilet with the lid open, you get a fecal plume.
You get a what?
A fecal plume. Did you not know this?
I didn't, and also I just love that it's called a fecal plume, and just like a peacock, like plumage.
I guess it's like plumage, but yeah. So I think when there was the heightened anxiety about viral load, etc., I guess there was more thought to, let's make sure there's not extra stuff. I was trying not to say shit in the air.
Nice. Oh, right. Okay. So maybe, yeah. But it was just the when flushing. It was just the why. That was the part, of course, that made me smile. Was as if I was supposed to close the lid as I was flushing, as opposed to before I flushed. And so I did it. I flushed it as I was closing the lid, just to see what it was like. I did it in time, like a good dancer.
So you gave yourself a lovely sort of fecal spray down the front portion of your body. I love that.
Oh, wait, hang on. Which is number ones and which is number twos?
Number two is sit down, number one is stand up. Yeah, no, but it's not necessarily about
That's for men, for the men listening, just in case.
It's about the poo that's in the toilet in general. I'm so sorry.
Everyone, we're so sorry. Susan in particular, so sorry.
We don't talk about anything except poo. Right.
Shall we stop?